NBA legends called Joe Hammond one of the most talented players of his time. But instead of global fame, he voluntarily turned down the NBA. Why did a man destined for a great future make a choice that destroyed his entire career? This story involves big money, dangerous decisions, and events that nearly erased his name from basketball history. And at the end of the video, you will find out why, even decades later, famous NBA players continue to speak about Joe Hammond with admiration and profound regret. Imagine a basketball player spoken of with respect by true NBA legends. A man whose game was called incredible. A player who, according to those who saw him with their own eyes, was capable of stepping out against future champions without fear and proving he was second to none. If, like me, you enjoy looking back at the great NBA legends of past decades, and you're interested in their true stories and little-known facts that are rarely talked about, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and makes it possible to bring you more videos like this. Thank you. Now, let's continue. It would seem that the name of such an athlete should remain forever in the history of world basketball. His jersey could be hanging beneath the rafters of the largest arenas, and millions of fans would still remember his best games. But something entirely different happened. Today, Joe Hammond is known only to the most dedicated basketball fans and those deeply interested in the history of legendary New York street courts. To the majority of NBA fans, this name means almost nothing. And therein lies one of the most astonishing paradoxes in basketball history. How did it happen that a man considered by many to be one of the most talented players of his generation never became a star in the Premier League of the world? Why did a basketball player who commanded the admiration of even future NBA celebrities vanish from the spotlight, leaving behind only legends, memories, and endless debates about what his legacy could have been? The most surprising part is that the reason was not a severe injury, not a lack of talent, not a shortage of offers from professional teams. Everything was much more complex. Opportunities that thousands of young players could only dream of opened up before Joe Hammond. Yet time and again, he made decisions that seemed completely inexplicable to those around him. Some considered him a free spirit who refused to live by anyone else's rules. Others were certain he had made one of the greatest mistakes in the history of basketball. Decades later, this debate has never ended. Some call Joe Hammond the greatest player never to play in the NBA. Others are convinced that he threw away immortal athletic glory with his own hands. Yet the most interesting thing is that many famous basketball players who had the chance to face him on the court never doubted his exceptional level. Some admitted they would never forget how this man literally dictated the game and made opponents feel helpless. His speed, ball handling, confidence, and ability to score made such a strong impression that stories about him quickly turned into near-urban folklore. In time, these tales began to sound so incredible that new generations of fans started viewing them as beautiful exaggerations. Did a player truly exist who could compete on equal terms with future NBA stars, yet never end up among them? Or was there something more hidden behind these stories? The answer to this question cannot be understood by looking solely at statistics or a list of achievements. The story of Joe Hammond begins long before the doors of professional basketball opened to him. To understand why a single choice changed his entire life, one must return to where it all started, to the noisy streets of Harlem. It was there that a talent was born which years later would be spoken of with admiration even by those who entered the history of world basketball themselves. In the 1960s, Harlem was a truly unique place. This neighborhood of New York lived by its own laws, its own rhythm, and its own rules. Here, basketball was not merely entertainment. It became a way to earn respect, make a statement, and change one's life. Every day, dozens of talented players gathered on the street courts, ready to battle for hours for the right to be called the best. Mistakes were not forgiven here, and a big name could be earned in only one way: by proving your superiority over and over again in front of thousands of spectators. It was in this atmosphere that Joe Hammond grew up. He was born on September 4, 1945, and from an early age found himself among people for whom basketball was an integral part of the culture. Even as a teenager, those around him noticed he was far from an ordinary player. He moved across the court so effortlessly, it was as if he already knew where every opponent would be a few seconds later. While others tried to beat a defender through sheer strength or speed, Hammond operated differently. He forced opponents to make mistakes by changing direction at the very last moment, then calmly finished the play. His confidence quickly caught the attention of local basketball enthusiasts. On the courts of Harlem, age was given no special allowance. If a young player stepped up against adults, no one intended to play more cautiously. On the contrary, newcomers became prime targets for experienced ballers. Yet Joe not only endured such trials. Increasingly, it was after the games that adult players discussed not their own performance, but the talent of the youth who feared no authorities. Fame spread very quickly. Back then, social media or video clips did not exist to make a person famous in a matter of hours. A single impressive game was enough for rumors to ripple across all of New York. People told one another about a young guard capable of beating almost anyone. Spectators increasingly came to the courts specifically just to watch him play. Over time, a true reputation as a phenomenon began to form around Joe. He was known not only in Harlem. Hammond's name was becoming recognized far beyond the neighborhood. Basketball players from other parts of the city traveled to check whether this guy was truly as good as people said. Many returned home with the exact same conclusion. The stories were no exaggeration. What particularly amazed people was his ability to completely control the flow of the game. He did not look like a man rushing to score as many points as possible. It seemed he genuinely enjoyed the process itself. He could beat the exact same defender several times in a row using different moves, causing the crowd to erupt in applause. Sometimes his passes made no less of an impression than his own baskets. He saw the floor so broadly that teammates often received the ball precisely at the moment they least expected a pass. Yet along with growing popularity came another feeling. Many began to understand that Joe's level had long since surpassed ordinary street basketball. The very same question arose more and more often. When would this guy make it to the professional league? It seemed only a matter of time. His talent was simply too obvious to go unnoticed. However, something even more surprising happened soon after. Instead of merely becoming another promising player, Joe Hammond turned into someone against whom even future world basketball stars dreamed of playing. That was when the stories began to be born that would sound almost unbelievable decades later. Very soon, Joe Hammond ceased to be just a talented player from Harlem. His name turned into a true challenge. Whenever Hammond appeared on the court, the spectators stayed until the very end of the game, and basketball players knew they were in for a serious test that day. Many came not for the victory at all. They wanted to find out if the stories about the mysterious master from the streets of New York matched reality. And almost every time, the answer turned out to be the same. Hammond played as if he recognized no authorities. Big names or future professional contracts meant nothing to him. He stepped out against any opponent with equal confidence and never changed his style. If he saw an opportunity for a one-on-one drive, he went all the way. If a defender left even the slightest space, Joe instantly took advantage of it. It seemed he knew in advance what movement would cause his opponent to lose balance. Yet his primary weapon was neither speed nor physical strength. It was the ability to completely control the tempo of the game. When everyone else accelerated, he unexpectedly slowed down. When the defense relaxed even for a split second, a lightning-fast burst followed. His movements looked so natural that at times it seemed as though the defenders were stepping aside of their own accord. Gradually, legendary New York courts began hosting encounters that would later enter the history of street basketball. Young players dreaming of one day reaching the NBA got the chance to test themselves against a man already called the best on the streets of the city. For many, it was a genuine exam, and not everyone passed it successfully. Particularly telling were his matches against future stars of professional basketball. People destined for brilliant careers suddenly collided with a player who rarely made sports newspapers, yet proved impossible to stop on the court. After such encounters, respect for Joe only grew. One of those who later spoke openly of Hammond's talent was Earl Monroe, a future NBA champion and Basketball Hall of Fame member. Monroe recalled that Joe possessed exceptional abilities and could play at the level of the best professionals of his time. Such words from a man of worldwide renown meant a great deal. Connie Hawkins, another legend of American basketball, who himself walked a difficult path to a professional career, rated him just as highly. Hawkins stated that Hammond possessed a rare natural gift that could not be acquired through training. Such assessments carried special weight because they came from people who knew the true price of real talent. Soon, the nickname The Destroyer stuck to Joe. It appeared for a good reason. On the court, he seemed to dismantle the confidence of his opponents. Even seasoned players began to grow nervous when they realized they were facing a man capable of turning any mistake into a spectacular highlight. Fans eagerly awaited precisely those moments. They came not just to watch basketball. They wanted to witness the ongoing show staged by Hammond. Yet the louder his fame became, the more unusual his situation grew. While most talented players dreamed of entering professional teams as quickly as possible, Joe's life began to unfold according to an entirely different scenario. On the streets of New York existed a world where one could earn sums in a single evening that many NBA players back then could only dream of. It was this very world that soon offered Hammond a choice that altered his destiny forever. This is precisely where Joe Hammond's story takes a completely unexpected turn. Usually, the path of a talented basketball player looked predictable: school team, college, scout attention, a professional contract, and a long-awaited debut in the NBA. But in New York, a different reality existed, one that is remembered far less often today. In the 60s and early 70s, street basketball was not just entertainment. Big money revolved around the biggest games. Wealthy individuals, unofficial tournament organizers, venue owners, and high-stakes gamblers gathered at prominent courts. The best players became true stars of this world. They were invited to the most prestigious matches, promised generous fees simply for participating. Joe Hammond found himself at the center of this attention very quickly. His name alone drew spectators. If word got out that Hammond was playing that evening, a massive crowd gathered around the court. People traveled from various parts of New York to see his game with their own eyes. Organizers understood perfectly that such a player generated profits, so they were willing to pay more and more. According to contemporaries, Joe could earn an amount in a single evening that seemed unimaginable to an ordinary person. Moreover, he received this money immediately, without lengthy negotiations, contracts, or numerous restrictions. For a young man raised in Harlem, such income looked like absolute freedom. This was the primary difference between his life and the career of most promising basketball players. While others waited patiently for an opportunity to join a professional team, submitting to strict discipline and coach control, Hammond already felt like a celebrity. He chose for himself where to play, who to face, and how many matches to contest. No one dictated the rules to him. From the outside, such a life looked almost ideal. Immense respect, fame, constant public attention, and money that materialized much faster than in traditional professional sports of those years. Unsurprisingly, more and more people began to say, perhaps Joe did not need the NBA at all. Yet behind the outer shine hid another side of this life. Where large amounts of cash circulated, people interested in things other than basketball were almost always present. Around prominent street games gradually formed an environment where sports closely intertwined with gambling, shady acquaintances, and the influence of the criminal underworld. A young player dwelling daily at the center of this attention inevitably began becoming part of an entirely different system of values. Hammond plunged deeper and deeper into this world. Victory brought not only viewer respect, but increasingly large payouts. Each new successful match reinforced the sense that his chosen path was correct. When money comes easily and thousands of people greet you with applause, it becomes extremely difficult to believe that serious consequences might lie ahead. Meanwhile, people from professional basketball continued to keep a close eye on his play. They understood perfectly that an exceptional player stood before them. Proposals to take the next step and finally try their hand in the NBA arose more and more frequently. For the vast majority of athletes, such a chance would have been the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. But Joe Hammond was already accustomed to living by his own rules, and soon he would have to make a decision that many later called one of the most unbelievable in the history of basketball. By that time, talk of Joe Hammond had long since crossed the borders of New York. He was known not only by street basketball fans. His name sounded increasingly among coaches, scouts, and individuals closely tied to professional teams. To them, it was obvious. A player with such natural gifts had no business remaining merely a legend of city courts. In those years, many talented basketball players were willing to work for years for a single chance to reach the NBA. Even an invitation to a tryout was considered a huge stroke of luck. That's precisely why Hammond's story looked so unusual. Opportunities found him of their own accord, but each time things turned out completely unlike what observers expected. According to those who knew Joe well, professional basketball was never his primary goal in life. He lacked that almost fanatical desire to reach the Premier League at any cost, which drove most young players. For him, basketball remained first and foremost a game, an opportunity to express himself and earn good money right here and now. Another reason existed as well. In the late 60s, financial terms in the NBA were nothing like what they became decades later. Today, professional contracts are associated with multi-million-dollar figures, but back then, many players earned far more modest sums. Sometimes the finest street basketball masters could earn amounts comparable to professional earnings in a short time without binding themselves to rigid obligations. To Hammond, this made complete sense. Why trade a familiar lifestyle for constant training, strict discipline, travel, and coach demands if he already enjoyed enormous popularity and lacked nothing in particular? Yet, not everyone shared that viewpoint. People watching his play were convinced he was voluntarily walking past a unique opportunity. They saw not just a talented street basketballer, but a man capable of leaving a mark on world sports history. Many were certain Joe could successfully play against the league's toughest guards and become one of the brightest stars of his generation. It was especially telling that such evaluations came not from journalists or fans, but from people who knew the NBA level firsthand. They understood how difficult it was to establish oneself among the world's best players, yet continued to maintain that Hammond possessed everything necessary to do so. Speed, ball handling technique, court awareness, the ability to create scoring space, he had it all. Yet every time the conversation turned to a professional career, Joe seemed to step back. He made no loud statements and tried to prove nothing to anyone. He simply continued living as he was used to. Day and night, he returned to familiar courts where thousands of spectators already awaited him. There he remained a true star, needing no official recognition. From the outside, it seemed he had total control over his destiny. But precisely during this period, something far more dangerous was unfolding. While professional basketball offers slowly faded, the circle around Hammond tightened. an environment that valued him not for the chance to become an NBA legend. His name was linked increasingly often with people for whom large sums of cash and risky decisions were a routine part of daily life. And it was then that events began drifting down a path from which escaping proved significantly harder than turning down a professional contract. At first, it seemed Joe Hammond had found the ultimate formula for success. He depended on no club management, obeyed no strict training schedule, and bore no multi-year contracts. Every new evening could bring him another brilliant victory, a solid fee, and even greater public respect. On the streets of New York, virtually everyone interested in basketball knew him. When he appeared near the court, spectators began gathering even before the opening whistle. Such renown was hard to compare to anything else. To the residents of Harlem, Hammond had long ago ceased to be merely a strong player. He had turned into a symbol of the neighborhood. Young ballers dreamed of sharing the court with him for even a few minutes. Experienced opponents treated an encounter with him as a serious test. And game organizers knew his name alone could guarantee packed bleachers around an open-air court. The money kept flowing. Joe was used to living in the moment and gave little thought to what might happen in 5 or 10 years. While others built professional careers step by step, he relished his freedom. It felt as though such a lifestyle would never end. Yet that very confidence gradually began working against him. The louder his name grew, the more people gravitated toward him who were attracted by things other than basketball. Some wanted to profit from his popularity. Others sought to use the famous player to bolster their own influence. Hammond increasingly found himself among individuals for whom large cash sums and risky decisions formed a routine part of everyday life. Over time, that environment began to feel natural. After the matches, conversations no longer focused solely on beautiful combinations or successful shots. Discussions increasingly drifted far beyond sports. The world Joe inhabited was slowly shifting, and along with it changed his habits, his circle of acquaintances, and his attitude toward his own future. The basketball itself remained magnificent. On the court, he still looked practically unstoppable. Fans saw only spectacular drives, confident shots, and ongoing victories. From the outside, everything in Hammond's life seemed to be going perfectly. Very few understood that outside the court, the situation was growing increasingly complex. Time was working against him. While Joe continued to shine on the streets of New York, his peers were cementing themselves in professional basketball. They gained experience, built reputations, and became part of NBA history. Meanwhile, Hammond grew ever more attached to a lifestyle that yielded fast success but offered no true stability. Perhaps the most dangerous thing was that he failed to sense the approaching shift. When a person wins for a long time, it starts to feel like it will always be that way. It seems any choice will prove right, and any mistake can be fixed later. It is precisely at such moments that many commit actions whose consequences become clear only years later. That turning point arrived for Joe as well. Gradually, decisions that once seemed harmless began compounding into a chain of events capable of altering his entire future life. Ahead lay trials that could no longer be beaten with talent, speed, or brilliant ball handling. And for the first time in a long time, Joe Hammond's primary opponent was no longer the player on the opposite side of the court, but himself. Mistakes began piling up gradually. Joe faced problems arising far beyond the basketball court with increasing frequency. Ties to the criminal underworld, constant rotation around large amounts of cash, and the habit of living for the day weighed heavier and heavier on his destiny. At various periods in his life, he repeatedly found himself under arrest and spent time behind bars. Each such episode distanced him further from professional sports. While top clubs sought players capable of becoming the face of the league, Hammond's name appeared ever more often in an entirely different context. Basketball remained a part of his life, but opportunities to alter his fate dwindled. His talent had nowhere vanished, yet the circumstances, largely of his own making, gradually closed doors that were once wide open. Meanwhile, his former rivals pushed forward. Those Joe had once met on the street courts of New York became NBA stars, won championship titles, reached all-star games, and etched their names into basketball history forever. Their finest moments were broadcast on television, books were written about them, and documentary films were shot. And of the man many considered no less talented, only those who personally witnessed his play knew the truth. That is why years later, Earl Monroe and other renowned basketball players continued to repeat that Joe Hammond possessed the level required to achieve immense success among professionals. Those words forced more and more people to wonder just how great his career could have become had he made a different choice one day. The ensuing years bore no resemblance to the times when thousands of spectators came out to watch The Destroyer. His name sounded less and less in sports news, although among basketball veterans, tales of Hammond's incredible game continued to be passed down from generation to generation. He remained forever a legend of the Harlem street courts, a man whose abilities were acknowledged even by future Hall of Famers. Joe Hammond passed away in 2023, leaving behind not a wealthy collection of trophies, but a question to which no definitive answer can ever be given. What if one of the most talented players of his generation had agreed to build a career in the NBA? The story of Joe Hammond is a reminder that sheer outstanding talent is far from always enough. Sometimes, destiny is determined not by how well a person plays, but by the choices they make off the court. That is why Hammond's name still evokes both admiration and regret. For some, he will forever remain the greatest player never to play in the NBA. For others, a symbol of immense opportunities that can vanish because of a few wrong choices. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to check out other videos on our channel. Links to several more astonishing fates of basketball legends have already appeared on screen, and they certainly will not leave you indifferent.